I'm so excited to be here. I'm the founder of Scripted, and we build technological tools to increase diversity and inclusion in entertainment. 4 years ago, I left my cushy Hollywood job to start my company. Because I believe that entertainment is the quickest way to create change. There's a direct correlation between what we see on the screen, how we perceive ourselves, and what we believe we can be. I've seen firsthand how entertainment moves people, how it deepens empathy. And the data has always supported inclusion. Women-led films do 2 times better in the box office financially, as do films with casts that are 50% plus inclusive. So when this happened last year, I wasn't surprised. The money has always pointed towards inclusion, but the system hasn't always supported that. And so I wanted to build tools to bridge that shift. Our first tool is a script database where we connect the dots more quickly between writers and buyers. It is the only non-pay-to-play database in Hollywood. And we built it because we knew that a human system could not keep up in a peak TV economy. And not to mention, the system was far from equitable in terms of representation. But 4 years ago was pre-Me Too. And as a good entrepreneur does, I was prescient. I knew something was coming that was going to accelerate the need for what we were building. But the industry wasn't quite ready to admit that inclusion was a problem. From the head of a production company who verbatim told me I was smoking a crack pipe for thinking that I could affect any change, to the former president of a studio who said, "Denise, I don't know what problem you're trying to solve. If you have a great screenplay, it gets made." And I challenge you to ask any director, producer, writer, celebrity who would support that statement. 12% of showrunners are women and people of color. So great screenplays don't get made by all people. And then Me Too happened. And I thought, here's this divine moment of change. It was the first time Hollywood had to admit that there might be a shift happening. With the sexism of the industry coming to the forefront, a dialogue started. And I'm so grateful for that. But action has been slower to come. I spent the past 4 years bootstrapping my business, building multiple products to reverse engineer ways we can mitigate the fear and the risk around investing in inclusion. And I've done it all for less than $500,000. Our first product has grown to 7,000 plus users. We've had 15 properties optioned, 90% of those written by women and people of color. And our first film, Hope Springs Eternal, came out on Netflix last summer. Thank you. And then last year we went to Silicon Valley to join an accelerator to build an entirely new product. A total reinvention of the screenplay format. Because we want to make it fun to read. We want to commercialize screenplays to compete with best-selling books to create a new story economy. Because I'm sure all of you, like me, have some franchise fatigue. And with this new cultural momentum and new product, I set out to raise our seed round. And having ultimately chosen to bootstrap in the past, I knew this time was different. We had traction, we had users, we had case studies, we had a clear innovation on an outdated format with a pretty damn good beta interaction. And the timing was finally right. And so I met with investors. 300 of them, actually, over 7 months. 50 who told me that I was a brilliant entrepreneur, that I had done so much with so little, and they were so impressed. But they were still passing on the opportunity. And this led me to bust some Silicon Valley myths. Because we are told in early stage companies, you bet on the founder. Because a great founder will inevitably pivot and pivot and pivot and pivot until they succeed. But that wasn't the case with me. We're also told that great founders have grit. They have resilience. They do more with less. I spent 2 years talking to an industry about a problem they didn't want to admit was a problem. I have grit. I have resilience. We have done more with less. So it didn't matter that I was told I was a great entrepreneur and we had an innovative product. because I clued into something. In 2016, 4.4% of venture capital went to women. That number went down to 2% in 2017 and remained steady last year at 2.2%. So far this year, we're tracking at 1.6%. So despite this perceived cultural movement towards inclusion, the reality is that the trend is going down. And just to really demonstrate the inequity in this space, there are only 34 women of color in the history of venture to have raised $1 million. 34. But women of color are starting businesses at a higher rate than any other demographic. So there's not a pipeline problem. So what's going on? Well, 92% of partners at VC firms are men. 74% of US VC firms do not even have a single female investor. And when we invest in women, we give them less than half the funding than their male counterparts. But women are making 78 cents per dollar on the dollar funded, while their male peers are making 31 cents. That is amazing. And when we invest in women, we invest in categories we have deemed safe. Of the top 10 largest transactions last year in the US in women-founded companies, 4 were in healthcare, and healthcare has pretty concrete proof points. The other 6 were in what are considered feminine industries: beauty, fashion, wellness, by women, for women. These are the categories VCs invest in. And as you can see, entertainment is not even on the radar. So on my journey with Scripted, building a tech company in entertainment, we faced closed door after closed door, while my peers who had less traction and fewer proof points were raising money. We were consistently told that we were too early. And what I knew then, and certainly what I know now, is that we are onto something. Because I know the Scripted numbers I mentioned before, they might feel small to you, but when you don't have a marketing or PR budget, your users are your marketing and PR. And my users are our evangelists, that we have inspired something in them. And what I'm most proud of is we have made people feel seen in an industry where they feel invisible. So I began to ask myself, who are the women-owned entertainment companies? And I'm sure a lot of you are thinking what I was thinking, which is Oprah, Reese Witherspoon, Ava DuVernay, all women who did not need to take in outside capital to start their businesses. Because this is who owns the top 5 media companies. We don't really allow women to own entertainment companies. So it doesn't matter how much you hustle and pull rabbits out of hats. The reality is that a woman, you might still fail. You probably will still fail. So I began to catalog my rejections from investors, which is a very fun exercise, guys. It's a great way to start your day. And here's what I found. I get the sense you guys are going after a good market that is ripe for change. If I was closer to the industry, I'd feel more comfortable. I think you're dead right. With timing and favorable macro trends, it still feels like there aren't yet enough proof points. I know you've accomplished a lot on very little money, but until there's track record and real growth. While we're both impressed with your vision for redefining the way screenplays get commercialized, we ultimately decided we didn't have the pattern recognition in this vertical to be comfortable placing a bet. I don't fit the pattern. My company does not fit the pattern. And the problem with pattern matching is that when we pattern match, we uphold exclusionary practices. Because if historically these industries have only been open to one type of person, then the pattern is always going to support that. And no diversity initiative is going to make a dent. And guys, innovation doesn't come from things we've seen before. Innovation does not fit the pattern. And the University of Chicago did a study on this. And they found that entrepreneurs and venture capitalists knew intellectually they should not follow the crowd, but they did it anyways. And those firms and those VCs in the long term, they suffered. While non-consensus entrepreneurs that walked into perceived high-risk industries, had scrutinized the market more deeply. They had a better product market fit, and they fared better. If we continue to invest in the pattern, we won't reach true innovation. Hollywood is arguably in the most chaotic time it's ever been in, with streaming platforms battling the studios, with the WGA suing the big four agencies, and Silicon Valley's in a similar place. It's the first time tech giants have had to reckon with what they have built and how it affects culture and society. The time is not now to invest in the pattern. The pattern has caused the implosion. It is time to reinvent, to look at perceived risk as the way to reward. I don't really believe in failure. I think failure is like a really great way to learn and grow. But what's been frustrating for me is that I haven't actually been able to see if what I'm building will fail. I'm still playing small because I haven't had the resources to get in the ring to fail big. While my male peers, not all of them, but many of them, have built companies they failed and they were rewarded in millions of dollars in funding for their next venture. To other peers who are making million-dollar mistakes in their companies, which is more money than I've had the opportunity to raise, nonetheless make mistakes with. And this isn't just my story. Unfortunately, this story is so unbelievably far from unique to me. This is Deshauna Spencer's story. Deshauna is the founder of Quelly TV, an incredible streaming platform for creators of color. She has bootstrapped her business to 25,000 monthly subscribers. She has monthly recurring revenue, still struggles for funding. It's Emily Best's story. She's the founder of Seed and Spark, a film crowdfunding platform. And she wrote a Medium article about the biases she faced while raising money pregnant. One investor told her that she would need 3 times the traction of Kickstarter for them to even consider an investment. And another founder who's going to remain anonymous, who couldn't raise money for 6 years. And then 6 years in, a famous man became her business partner, and now their company is worth $150 million. So the problem I face in VC is the problem I'm trying to fix in Hollywood. And if 14 of the 130 unicorns are women-owned, but only 2 to 4% of venture capital has gone to women over the past 10 years, but 10.7% of unicorns are women-owned, I'd say the potential is massive. And so if you follow the money in venture capital and in Hollywood, it points towards inclusion. So why aren't we following the money? We're at a critical time at the future of our industries, and I need all of your help. This is not something any of us can do alone. We have the opportunity now to reinvent, to look at perceived risk as the opportunity. And I know usually at the end of these talks, a founder will have like a big reveal where they tell you they've raised all this money, or they'll tell you they failed, and here's what they've learned. I've done neither. And my hope is that we illuminate the struggle of a founder before they fail. Founders that should not fail. And I'm not ashamed of where we are. Because despite these systemic issues, I know we will succeed. Scripted has had small failures and small successes. But I'm asking you to allow women to fail big. Because as you can see from today, we're more likely to win big. Thank you so much.